Hey YouTube, welcome back to Model Railroad Operations, and welcome to a long overdue SCR layout update. Now we got a lot to cover in this one, so let's get started. Now the first thing I'm going to cover is the scenicing of a good portion of the second deck. So as you'll eventually see, just about all of the second deck has at least some basic scenery on it. There's still a lot more to go, but this is looking pretty good so far. So the first thing I did for this section is put down some sculpt-a-mold for some terrain variation, and then put some plaster of Paris up for the rocks, and then make some cuttings in the rocks and stain them, and so on and so forth. And then next comes the dirt, after, of course, a base paint, just some regular latex house paint. Then comes the dirt, sipped it from the backyard. And I'm also test fitting my trees at this point, just to see how they would fit in and that sort of stuff. And now comes the ground foam, which for this I got like 15 different types and consistencies of Woodland Sceniced ground foam, put them all in a bowl and mixed them up. And as you'll see, it makes for very nice variations in the ground foam. Very nice sort of green color. And then once that's all in, next I add some clump foliage, put the trees on, add some more accents and rocks and detailing, and the scene is essentially complete. Of course, there's still details that need to go in, and eventually I pour the water in the stream, as you'll see there. And I'll add that the stream, since it was really hard to get back, kind of reach all the way back there, and I didn't really feel like building another bridge. So I made this stream a sort of natural spring where, in theory, a river would originate from. And these next couple shots are trains on the main line and then also on the branch line of this first scenic scene. And here I am pouring Artist Gloss Medium for the stream. And with that section more or less complete, I moved on to scenicking the main yard area, or at least getting some basic scenery on the main yard area. So it starts with, of course, masking off the track and getting the rock stuff done for the log pond and the little runoff afterwards. And for this time, I decided I'd try a technique I learned from Peter Lloyd Lee, where he tore little squares of static grass mats from Scenic Express and glued them down and sort of filled in the surrounding areas with dirt and ground foam and so on and so forth. So here's an example of the sort of transitionary trees I have in this particular area, kind of representing the transition from deciduous in the valley to the more coniferous side of things in the foothills and up in the mountains. And here's some more shots of the structures and everything. Now I'll add that the way I make my coniferous trees, it's very, very simple, very bottle brush. Just take some barbecue skewers, put some furnace filter on them, spray paint the whole thing, of course glue everything on, and add your ground cover with hairspray as adhesive, and you're good to go. And here is the lumber mill structures that I put in, kind of semi-kit bashed a Walther's sawmill kit, as well as its outbuildings, and of course my engine shed and everything else. And here's some freight cars in the yard, and that hill in the background is kind of a little scenic block in order to have some terrain variation, and so that the hard to reach area is taken care of essentially. And here's a shot of Altaville, and with that, it's time to have the first operating session. So here's John Schmidt working the switch job in the yard, And in these next two shots, you will see some video of a couple trains going across the layout in two different locations. One's one of the drag freights I have going over the bridge in the first area to be scenic, and then there's also one of the perishable trains going through that same area as well. And with that op session done, I had a lot to do back at school and everything like that, so I really didn't do too much on the layout. But I did cut out a little section of the foam for the Alpine Lake up on the third level. And here's a project that came back from a DCC installer on eBay. It's an old brass logging Mikado, though when these pictures were taken, it was missing its trailing truck. I was able since then to sort of pilfer a trailing truck off of another engine. And yeah, it could use a new decoder, but it looks pretty good as far as weathering goes and whatnot. Now, I had the first op session in a couple years over at Tom Swearingen's layout, which has been featured on the channel twice now, and at some point we'll get a third video because of all the new scenery and stuff Tom has done over the course of our absence in operating sessions. So this is an area, I think it's Martinez from what I remember. But yeah, he's just done a really nice job and some really interesting building work and scenery and everything. He has a building with a full interior on there, though I don't think I show it in this section. But yeah, Tom has also done a good amount of at least basic scenery on the layout. He's made a lot of changes and things of that nature. So here's a shot of a freight train going down the helix.
Would you rather do that, Mike?
I'm good.
No, I'm serious. You want to run your Amtrak train down the hill? I'm good with that.
I just need a second throttle then.
Just re
Cap car and
you need the what?
I need a second throttle for that. A Kia put an 8301 on that.
Be careful on the edge. You don't want to run over any truck.
Now, for those of you who have been following the channel, you will have seen my sort of vlog series on the Sound Rails event in Seattle. But here are some bonus pictures that I took from the event. And believe me, I took a lot of pictures, so these are going to be very interesting. So up first is, of course, Kirk Reddy's Milwaukee Road and, well, really greater Milwaukee Road layout in the that I toured. So mainly just shots of the layout itself. Not a whole lot of action shots of trains or anything like that, which is the case with pretty much all the stuff I took with my phone. during this event. My camcorder did the actual videography for the tours and everything like that. But yeah, here is Kirk Reddy's layout. So enjoy these bonus pictures. And now here's a few shots of the Seattle and North Cascades Railroad at the Boeing Model Railroad Club. Now, this next shot, in my opinion, is probably one of my favorite shots that I took throughout this event, and that is of some GNF units on Lee Marsh's Great Northern. And next, here are some shots of Dick Carnes, S-Scale, New York, Westchester, and Boston. And now we are at the Port Townsend and Southern. And as you'll remember from the vlog series, after the Port Townsend and Southern, I went over to Greg Wright's Consolidated Republic Mining Company. And then it's up to Tacoma for Tyler Whitcomb's Tenino Western Railroad. And then the grand finale of my trip to Seattle was a visit to Burr Stewart's Burlington Northern. Now back in the Bay Area, it was time for a pre-PCR convention op session on John Schmidt's Nicasio Northern. Now you'll remember this layout was one of the first layouts I ever covered in the Model Railroad Operations channel, and John has done so much work on it. He completely moved a whole portion of the layout, like 3 feet further out, so that the aisles would be larger. And he's done so many changes with the track work. He's added more staging yards. He's has all these really nice panels and switch machines and so on and so forth. It's really impressive what he's done, and I cannot wait to make another video on the layout once he sort of refines his operating scheme a bit more. And I mentioned the PCR convention, and I actually had my layout open for op sessions during the convention. So my second op session ever was for the PCR convention. And mere days before the operators were due to show up, I decided I would scenic at least part of the third level. So this being the line out from the narrow gauge interchange up to Bear Valley and the staging yard for the narrow gauge. So, of course, what I did this time was stack some foam, put the sculptor mold on there. I used up the rest of the sculptor mold I had on me for this build. Then it's the process of painting and adding ground foam. And this time, I didn't really feel like doing the whole plaster of Paris thing for rocks. So what I did instead was I literally just dry brushed the exposed areas with like a gray, and in all honesty, it works perfectly fine for the look I'm trying to go for. So if you want just a quick and easy technique for the rocks, just dry brush some gray over your base coat of brown paint or whatever you're using. And there's a sign for the PCR Layout Tour, which I subsequently put up for a subsequent op session. I didn't take any photos from those op sessions, unfortunately, but it's time for another visit to the Carquinez Model Railroad Society, and this time I brought my SCR SW1200 and caboose, and I ran a local train during an op session of theirs. So here's a shot of me waiting in a siding for another train to pass. I didn't take any shots of the train in motion because I had to, because I was operating the train off the Y throttle app on my phone, so I couldn't, switch between the camera and that sort of stuff. So that's one of the few inconveniences of Y throttle, but it is what it is. And now it's time to go down to Southern California for SoCal Ops. Now, this event was a lot of fun, and I operated 3 layouts. This is, of course, the first of them, that being Jeff Abbott's SP Organ Division, set in the early 1970s, as you could see by the Amtrak SDP-40Fs in the Klamath Falls staging yard. He has some basic scenery down, but for the most part, this is a fairly barren layout, but it didn't really matter. It was still a lot of fun to operate, and I just have to say that these N-scale trains are probably some of the best running N-scale trains I've ever had the pleasure of operating. Just everything was just so smooth, and he put sound decoders in them, and everything just worked like a charm. I think he has some lubricating conductive oil on the tracks. So that does make the tractive effort a little bit difficult, but he has a helper district, and that just makes operations more fun. So here's some shots of some trains going through the one more or less scenic area of the layout. And this is probably one of my favorite shots from all of SoCal Ops, this SP manifest going over the big bridge. And coming up, there are going to be some videos of some trains going over the layout. So hope you enjoy those.
What sort of grade has he got there? Is that about 3%?
It looks like those hookers are through and very funk between those engines. Because of the touch.
Yes. Up to 1.8. 1.8, yeah. It might be a tiny bit over, but when I calculated it out, that's what I was trying for. So. Is that working out okay there today? Putting good trains in it.
You have the sign up for in June or Springfield? Yep. So, since I want to insist that it will be in the clear, I don't know how we're gonna do that. No, I guess there's some, that's there. Right, they are in fire. There's a magnet under there.
Hey, Mel.
Hey, how's it going there, Mike? Good. Good to see you. Oh, did you? Oh, okay. Oh, it's magnet working.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Right on.
69 degrees.
Oh.
They're completely foggy.
Oh, wow. How far did you go in? How far in did you go? Did you go like half hour?
No, we just went to Emory. Yeah, where you go to Somas.
Oh, okay. Oh, 50? Yeah. That's no fun.
Yeah, sometimes you sit around for a while and nothing happens in the yard and then it all comes together at once.
Yeah.
So Matthew, your helper engineer is going to be Peter, just sitting on the chair behind you. And you can put the helpers in up there at Oak Ridge or wherever is convenient between you two.
So the last 6
And up next is Gary Siegel's L&N Eastern Kentucky Division in Santa Barbara. So that was by far the longest drive of the trip from Simi Valley, where the hotel was based. And I just have to say that I am genuinely surprised that this layout is not right up there with like the Virginian and Ohio and stuff like that in terms of its popularity, because it is, first of all, an Appalachian coal road, and he uses a lot of very similar scenery techniques to what Alan McClellan and Tony Custer, back when he had the Allegheny Midland, were using for their layouts, such as this main yard, as you can see there. I don't think I took any shots of the tracks disappearing into the background, but that's straight out of the Allegheny Midland. But yeah, this layout was a lot of fun to operate using timetable and train orders. Even though he has a full CTC machine, they were doing sort of alternating sessions for the event, and I got the timetable and train order session. And there are also some incredible shots, at least I think, from this layout as well. And I'll point them out as they come up. But yeah, of course, he's modeling the Louisville and Nashville Railroad, as well as a bit of the Clinchfield, Southern, Norfolk, and Western, all that good stuff. So as you can tell, it's a coal road. So this is the little coal marshaling yard where all the mine runs are based out of. So they basically take empty hoppers to the loadouts, swap the loads, go back to the yard, and then the big long coal trains go off to the prep plant, which is off the layout. But yeah, here's some more shots of some more of the mines and the loadouts and all that sort of stuff. And here is the CTC machine that is used to operate the layout during CTC operations. And this right here is the area that is known as the mole, which is a large staging yard where engines are swapped out and trains are switched around and all that sort of stuff. And it's even got some scenic elements in it, which is very nice. So this is one of the shots from the layout that I really like, and it's this pulpwood flat being loaded by a loader. I don't quite know the specific name for the machine, but I really like this shot. And I also really like this shot of this reefer train coming down this valley. And these next two shots I also really enjoy, of the reefer train crossing a high bridge right next to the Norfolk Western Interchange. And this right here is probably my favorite shot for the whole layout. That's the caboose of the reefer train disappearing into a tunnel. And up next is some videos from the layout. So you'll see a decent variety of trains passing through the various scenes.
Now, do I have to have all that for here? Tells you on the timetable where you go last. Where? No.
Gotcha.
get your to-do stuff, right?
Yeah, you need to take that out. Is Chris gonna stay with us?
This train?
Yeah. Let's see, so
You know, I should have, probably have.
push it back together, there's no big deal. You want me to?
I'm just trying to figure out how to get over there, that's the problem, because this is my only social right here.
I need to talk to you, so I don't know who's doing what.
Well, no, but.
Looks like Tom is doing business church.
It would go to tile store because we got stick in there stuff. So what is this guy on? 74? Where do you want to send it? It's empty. And now we would check the other wood chip one. It's the other one. Wood chip loads over there?
What else is on there? Oh, really? Oh, I put your packet over here.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I don't have anything more. Okay. They said go ahead and do it. So I went down to make sure that I could take them.
Oh, I didn't bring them. You?
Couldn't get them on the
So
phone.
he brought me, what? No, these are 24, these are 7 cents. And I don't have any food.
And lastly, the third and final layout I operated was the Hamlin and Valley Central Railroad, which was a little bit of an impromptu session because the layout owner that I was supposed to operate on the third day unfortunately had some health complications with his family, and he wasn't able to host. He had to cancel. So the owner of this layout so graciously opened up for another session on the third day. And so it was just myself and 2 other people, and we had a very nice time running trains, a very relaxed environment, plenty of switching, plenty of that good stuff. Of course, as you can see, it's sort of a Santa Fe theme going on. And yeah, I just had a lot of fun running this layout. It's clear that this layout is very old. I think the owner said it was originally constructed in like the 70s. So you see a lot of older turnouts and old cornerstone buildings and stuff like that. But everything looks really good, and it's a very endearing layout. So, you know, it just really goes to show that, you know, you really don't need a whole bunch of, you know, craftsman kits and scratch built everything to have something that looks very nice in the end. So really, just as long as you're having fun, that's the real goal here. So here's some videos of the layout. And lastly, I'll leave you on these shots of the lumber mill on the 3rd level and some engines in the engine shed on the 2nd level. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next layout update that I post, or the next operations video that I post. Hopefully over my summer break, I can get a bit more scenicing done, some more detailing of engines, some more weathering, and some more operations. So I really hope to see you all then. Thank you so much for watching.